Okay, so we're going to look now at how the political system in our country, our two-party political system, affects criminal justice decision making. We talked about in Module 1 political ideology. The political system in the United States, as most of you are aware, is dominated by two particular parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And within those two political parties, there are subdivisions within the parties. The Democratic Party is considered a more liberal type of political party, and many of the policies of the Democratic Party tend to be more geared towards protecting individual rights. So when it comes to passing criminal laws, they're less likely to assign penalties to those criminal laws that involved mandatory minimum sentencing types of statutes, or three strikes and you're out types of statutes that are considered tough, quote unquote, tough on offenders, or tough on crime. And when it comes time for a Democratic governor or a Democratic president to appoint certain decision makers, they're going to look for individuals within their political party, or that share the same political philosophies and their same approaches to fulfill those positions. Republicans, on the other hand, tend to be more conservative. They tend to look to enforce the criminal laws by using such laws of mandatory minimum sentencing, of three strikes and you're out type of statutes. And when it comes time for a Republican governor or a Republican president to appoint individuals to the federal bench, they're going to look for judges that are more conservative and that are going to apply laws that are going to afford the police opportunities to be tougher on crime, or to they're going to pass laws, they're going to enforce them in a manner that gives police greater discretion in applying and following strict rules when it comes to the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that judges from either political parties don't follow the law, but what I want you to understand is their philosophy may afford individuals more protection in how they interpret and how they apply the law, which is what judges do, or are they going to be a little bit more bent towards being pro-law enforcement and affording an analysis that looks at the totality of the circumstances in a light more favorable to the police. So those are how political ideologies affect judges. Let's also look at how it affects prosecution. Again, prosecutors in the United States are given a great deal of discretion, and they're given a great deal of discretion in how they decide to charge offenders with offenses. Now, many of you might be wondering, well, wait a minute, the police charge criminals with criminal offenses, and that is correct, but individuals are formally charged with crimes when they appear in court, and many times prosecutors change the charges that the police have originally assigned to offenders, depending on the particular offender's criminal background, depending on the type of crime that was alleged. So while they are charged by the police, they are not formally charged until they appear in court, and prosecutors make the decision whether or not charges are going to be imposed that carry mandatory minimum sentencing, or whether there are sentencing enhancement statutes, for instance, such as a convicted felon being in possession of a firearm. There are enhanced penalties for that. So the prosecution has a great deal of discretion in how criminals are charged, and their political philosophy has a very strong influence in making that decision. So how are prosecutors? How do they attain their office? Some prosecutors in states are elected officials and run a political campaign espousing what political party they are affiliated with and how they would change the way the system of prosecution is occurring in their particular area, or would they continue what they are doing while they are in office, or would they do something different than the prosecutor that is currently in charge of that particular area? Usually prosecutors that are elected are called district attorney systems. And the district attorney system is present in Massachusetts. It is also present in New York. And then below the district attorney, there are assistant district attorneys that carry out the everyday work of the district attorney and follow the rules and the regulations as that district attorney that is elected sets forth for their particular agency. So it has a great deal of influence on the district attorney, their election, of how they decide to prosecute crimes. Here in Connecticut, we have a different system. Prosecutors are appointed by a criminal justice commission. The criminal justice commission is made up of political appointees by governors who appoint them, and they are normally appointed to a commission for a period of years. It's normally a 4-year appointment, and so they remain in office for 4 years, and they determine who becomes the prosecutor and who does not. And the head of the state's attorney's office for the state of Connecticut is called the chief state's attorney. And similar to the prosecutors that work every day in court, the chief state's attorney is appointed by the commission that is appointed by governors. So the political system in those states, also the political ideology of the party that's in power, has a great deal to do with who is elected to the chief state's attorney's position. And although we have 12 districts that have state's attorneys that run individual judicial districts, they are separate and distinct from the chief state's attorney, but often they work well together, and they follow the rules and policies of the state's attorney's office. So that's the prosecution. And last but as important, police agencies. Police executives, police chiefs of towns and cities are usually appointed by the executive serving in their particular jurisdiction. Whether it's a city, the chief is appointed by a mayor or town council. And in some locations, the police chief, once they attain their job, they are protected by certain due process rights and can only be removed for just cause. But in other places, they serve at the pleasure of the mayor or the city of which they were appointed. Similarly, at the state level, normally the heads of state police agencies are appointed by the governor and then are confirmed by the state senate in which they serve. And obviously those commanders of the state police agencies normally have the same type of political philosophy as the executive, the governor of the state of which they are appointed follow, quite frankly, otherwise they wouldn't serve it in their capacity. Lastly, at the federal level of law enforcement, the Attorney General is appointed by the President of the United States and then confirmed by Congress. And that Attorney General owes their position to the particular president that appoints them. So similarly, they oftentimes follow the political ideology of the president from whom appointed him or her. And an example, former Attorney General Holder believed that certain federal drug laws were discriminatorily applied to certain minority groups, and he instructed all of the United States attorneys to change the way that mandatory minimum sentences applied to drug laws were applied across the board to try to be more fair to everyone. And so that was just an example of how political ideology affects the prosecution, because the President of the United States similarly had that same approach to drug laws in the United States, and Attorney General Holder had that similar belief and influenced the way that United States attorneys' offices prosecuted certain drug offenses. So that is just a brief lecture to coincide with what you've read about how the political system in the United States affects the criminal justice decision makers. Thank you.